Welcome to another edition of the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Marck, and today I'm thrilled to be joined live and in person in the SBD studio with Sadie Shearer, one of our external home buying consultants. Sadie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark.
So as an external home buying consultant here at SBD Housing, what are your two things? What do you do?
Building relationships and buying houses.
Great. So I know that we have many home buying consultants. What is your focus primarily?
I'm mostly focusing on working with wholesalers.
So for those of you that are unfamiliar, wholesaling is the art of getting a home under contract and then assigning that contract to someone who's going to rehab the house and actually do the work. So with us rehabbing more houses in Kansas City than any other house flipper, clearly we love wholesale relationships, and that's why we have someone dedicated like Sadie that works solely on these wholesaling relationships to drive value. So today we just wanted to kind of do a deep dive on wholesale relationships and how that works, how someone could work with us, and Sadie's here to just kind of lend her expertise along the way. So Sadie, tell me a little bit about the wholesaling marketplace right now. I know Kansas has recently passed a bill. In general, there's kind of some, some negative connotations to wholesaling specifically. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think guys that are getting into the industry, they see it as a really quick, easy way. Maybe they've watched a few YouTube videos and they think, well, wow, that seems easy. And they just jump into it. And there's been some problems with it. I think it's gotten kind of a bad name for itself, but some folks in the real estate industry were a little unhappy with how things were happening around that and proposed some law that would prevent wholesalers from assigning the equitable interest without having a real estate license. So
for those that are listening that are unfamiliar with the practice of wholesaling, let me dive even deeper. We work with sellers that are distressed, whether they are facing foreclosure, bankruptcy, divorce. They have an ugly house is probably the primary one, right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen some ugly houses over the years.
Oh, yeah.
So when you walk into these situations directly, obviously we work directly with the seller and you try and solve that problem. The flip side is now there's a wholesaler involved. So a wholesaler has talked to that seller ahead of time and got their house under contract. Is that right?
Yep. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll walk, 10, 15 buyers through all at the same time. And I always laugh because I'm being introduced as like a roofer, and clearly I'm not a roofer and nor am I climbing on the roof. So it can be a little bit shady.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's the last frontier there's many ways to make money in real estate with no money, but I think wholesaling is the classic pitch from the front of the room. Hey, you don't need any money at all to make money in real estate. You can do it with no money down deals. And clearly there's approaching seller and doing a seller carry-back financing is one method, but the other is clearly wholesaling. And that's garnered so much attention over the last few years. And there's just so much money to be made in real estate in an up market like this that do you feel like the tide has kind of risen as high as it can possibly go with this bull run of 12 years in the market? When that tide goes out and Warren Buffett says that you'll be seeing who's been swimming with no clothes on, I think you'll soon see that.
Indeed, yeah.
But wholesalers in general have been really aggressively pursuing this marketplace. So again, not opposed to it. The people that do it right, wholesaling can be a very effective way to help a seller out of a difficult home ownership situation. But tell me what the Kansas Commission or the Kansas State Senate, is that right, has recently proposed some legislation?
Yeah, so it's just to exclude anyone without a license from practicing really any type of real estate. Some of the other states that have passed similar legislation, really, they have outlawed the assignment component completely, whereas Kansas seems to be a bit more lenient, and they're allowing wholesaling practices to continue, but just under a umbrella of a brokerage. So, a wholesaler would have to go take the test, trust and, get their license and hang their license with a broker in order to do that. And I think there's one final step before it becomes law. I think the House has to vote on it.
Yep.
And then we kind of anticipate that after, that happens, there's probably going to be more states that are attached to Kansas.
Sure.
Certainly Missouri would be the first, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then potentially Iowa, Nebraska. I think Oklahoma's already there. So,
yes.
yeah, no, that will definitely be. And there's continuing to be negative speak through the press that I read on wholesaling in general, with just people getting a house under contract, assigning it, doing zero value add to the home, and then getting these massive rips. They just feel like they're getting taken advantage of. So anyway, let's pivot to your work with wholesalers specifically. Why do you like working with wholesalers in the marketplace?
I loved the relationship components. I think a lot of people would agree that, leveraging your relationships is powerful. But I really do care about people. So when you meet someone who has a hunger and the desire to, improve their situation, they have the entrepreneurial spirit, and they want to provide a life for their family, and you can tell that they're genuine, they have integrity, and they say they're going to do what they say they're going to do. It's cool to watch them through that process of when they first start, and then eventually kind of growing and doing some of their own projects, whether that means building out their portfolio or, getting their hands dirty and doing some of the real stuff, the flipping stuff, the hard stuff. And, I think when they have those experiences, they can appreciate, the level of volume we do and just know how painful it can be. It's wow, this is not even what I thought. And then they learn some hard lessons. But back to your question about why I like working with them is just kind of that repeat business where you can really, work together, collaborate, and those relationships are very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I think the flip side would be our other home buying consultants, which work directly with the seller. But that's, again, you're trying to solve a problem. You have to be empathetic. You have to make sure it's a win-win situation, but one and done, right?
Exactly.
Whereas you're building relationships that stand the test of time. I don't know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. What kind of volume is your largest wholesaler doing? Because last year, I think we did somewhere around 90 transactions just through the wholesale channel, 90 or 100. How many of them came from one particular wholesaler, and how many different wholesalers do you work with?
I would say there's probably a core of 5 or 6, but then the list can get pretty long.
Yeah.
I think everyone's doing different marketing. So whenever their marketing starts hitting, we'll start communicating more, and then other times other guys will kind of drop off and they've got focus on other aspects of their business, but I would say for the large part there's 5 or 6 main guys that I work with. So
it's the classic 80-20 where 80% of the business comes from 20% of the people you work with. But
yes.
Again, you to your credit, I see you working with all kinds of different wholesalers out there, so you're putting in building those relationships because you never know when they're going to hit, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me, you mentioned rehab and construction. It reminds me of when we first brought you on board. And tell the audience a little bit about what you learned when you came to SBD, which was now not just we were not a wholesale operation. You were kind of working at just wholesaling in the past. Now we're actually like a rehab and construction company. Tell us a little bit about your first 6 months here in the org.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you guys are very organized when I came on, and there's templates and ways of estimating repairs on a house that, seemed very simple. And then it was the first opportunity I think I had to buy a house when I started here. And I had it all ready, and pitched it to you guys. And before I knew it, we were en route to the house. Actually, I think Chris and I rode together, and you beat us there, even though you left after us. Surprise.
Surprise no one, right?
Right. So, but it was very of course, I was like, oh my gosh, Mark and Chris are both coming to this house to like critique my work, or, you know, and it was less of a critique than it was like a teaching moment. And Mark took me through how he would walk a house, which he starts on the outside and learns the story of the house, how it sits on the lot, the grade, all of those little things that, you know, you don't think about. You just see, okay, here's a house, it's on a lot. But Mark you walked us all around the house and said, look how, you know, where the water flows and the position of the house and direction, all of this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I've got a lot to learn. I think I was trying to add a bathroom to the house to increase our rent rate. And I learned real quick that was not going to work where I wanted to put it. So long story short, we had to renegotiate that one. And I think we were able to end up buying it, but it was some valuable lessons.
Yeah, construction is a massive undertaking, and I think if I were to critique any of the wholesalers, let me say it this way. I think the wholesalers that are very good at what they do understand construction better. To what degree do you try and educate your wholesalers, and have any of them kind of appreciated learning more about construction? I'm sure you have to educate them along the way.
All the time. Yeah, I can remember standing on the exterior of a house, and the slope of the roof was super low, and I could literally see that this roof had 5 or 6 layers of shingles. And they told me, on our initial conversation that the roof was good because it had a brand new layer on top. So, from the top it looked fine. And I was like, well, you can literally touch each and every layer. So that's a problem. And so we walked through why that was a problem and why that doesn't mean it was a new roof, that we're actually going to end up spending more than the typical roof because now you have to redo the decking. So just
uninsurable effectively.
Right. Just little stuff like that I didn't even know that I've learned while being here.
Yeah. And so the commitment we have as an organization, just to let the people at home realize, is that doesn't stop when you come in and just get your first initial walkthrough. Our director of construction, Chris Joseph, is someone that does, they call it truck day, where all of our employees, whether it be someone in property management or marketing or as a home buying consultant or finance, whatever, they all have truck day, because I think there's value and power in having the knowledge of what we do. And you've had truck days with Chris Joseph, is that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's a really cool guy. He doesn't always say a lot, but when he talks, it's important. And I really respect him a lot. I mean, he's done such a tremendous job here.
Yeah, it's been great. So let's talk about a couple of the deals. Let's talk about, without mentioning their names, I guess, what recent deals come to mind as far as an example of like a win-win situation in working with a wholesaler?
I can think of a handful of different things that happen, frequently. So you may have a situation where, and I guess I should back up for a second and say that, because we are so reliable and well capitalized, that we can usually swoop in and help in a situation where perhaps a wholesaler is up against a deadline and needs a buyer, has been unable to procure a buyer, and so you're kind of there as the saving grace in those situations. So perhaps a wholesaler is new and doesn't know how to vet a potential buyer, and has a situation where the buyer doesn't perform as promised, and then calls me at the 9th hour, or we learn of each other and the potential of doing business, and we can come in and make that situation right for everyone, including the seller, who is ultimately depending on the money.
Right.
So those situations happen, I would say somewhat frequently, where things kind of come back around. Or I really enjoy working with, and we've built enough trust to where they they know that I'm going to be honest and give them true feedback. So someone will call me and say, I've got a really hot lead. I don't have it under contract with the seller yet, but I'd like to kind of see where you'd be before we move forward. And so I can do like a desktop analysis and give them a high to low range of where we'd need to be. And then they can do those negotiations on, and then I go walk through it and, we're really dialed in. We know what we're doing. So I think large part we can estimate within, 5 to 7K on where we would need to be on the purchase.
So they're literally using you as a resource to help. You're really helping them grow their business effectively.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they bring me deals and I want to be able to bring value as well. And so however I can do that, whether it's comps, a lot of guys will ask me to run comps for them, even if it's not a house that we can buy. I'm happy to provide that if that's going to help them get more money into their business so they can generate more.
How much money did SBD pay out to wholesalers last year?
I think it was about $1 million. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I know.
Yeah, I think in the last 2 years, in fact, and I'm sure it'll be even more this year, but the volume continues to increase. And so, I mean, obviously Sadie came on board SBD just as a home buying consultant. We pivoted her to focus on wholesale because she's so relationship driven, such a great person that just loves to build those relationships. And so it's been wonderful to see you grow this whole portal, but now it's getting more and more and more. There are many people in our industry that just try and compete against wholesalers. And, it has been a commitment from SBD in the business to say, no, hey, we heart wholesalers. We have a webpage that gives them very clearly defined buy box. We even share our rehab calculator with them. We're doing everything possible, right, to try and... Yeah.
Absolutely. And our numbers are number, some of these guys are concerned about, are you going to have a problem when you see the settlement statement and know how much I make, or perhaps are shy to share, how much money that they're going to make on the deal. And our numbers are number, we're not going to come back and try to undercut you because we know you're making whatever. And
how many times have you daisy chained a wholesale deal?
Never. That's a good point. I think a lot of people are out there doing that. And so
wholesaling the wholesale.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, no, we want the inventory, right? I mean, you don't get to be the largest remodeler in Kansas City and supply our end game, which is, obviously turnkey real estate assets by just, wholesaling them off. So,
right.
Yeah. I'm taking lots of notes here. It's been a fun session. Where are there opportunities to share like what you've learned as far as best practices, through wholesaling specifically? Like what are the mistakes perhaps? I mean, this is called the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. What mistakes do you see wholesalers make that you feel like you could help them? If someone say, I want to start fresh and I want to give it my best, how would you try and help them down the right path?
There's a lot to that. I think, number one would be knowing the market, understanding values. So number one would be that. And then also, I mean, it's really simple. It's just do what you say you're going to do, right?
Not only to you, but probably also to the seller.
Well, that's right? Where it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're with a seller and you're promising to buy their house, essentially. I think transparency is best. Many times I think there's a challenge in explaining how the wholesale process works, that they're kind of going to be procuring a buyer and they may not share all of that information. I think the more transparent you can be with someone, the better the outcome for everyone involved. But many times wholesalers are not sharing with them like what their strategy is in order to get to the closing table because they don't have the funds and maybe they're a little embarrassed about that. And that's where we can really come in and be a valuable partner because we can provide that letter of funding. And we can be the professional and the one that can close, but you have to be able to trust your buyers who you're working with. And I think we've done a good job of delivering, and so therefore we can be trusted. But one of the things that I see that really frustrates me is you have a seller in a bad situation, and perhaps they want a certain amount of money for the house, and our wholesale partners aren't maybe quite as keen with the negotiations and how to get a seller to the price that makes sense. So they just give them what they want and hope for the best. And that is going to lead to some challenges when they're trying to, find the end buyer. If it doesn't make sense, then no one's going to buy it. And that
IJM.
Seller, yep, yep, it is. It's just math. But you have to know your math too, right? So the sellers are left on the hook, and they think that they are going to close on a given date, and it doesn't happen, and that is problematic and can put people in a really bad situation.
So you've literally had sellers like packing up the U-Haul ready to go, and then a wholesaler just doesn't perform?
Yes, it happens.
Oh, wow.
It happens. Or they renegotiate at the last minute, and I think that can be it's not a good practice. It's
so someone, let's line that out. So you're saying there's times where the house may be only worth $180,000. You know that it needs, $30,000 worth of work. So now we're down to kind of a 150 with no profit. Someone will come in and offer them 150 and expect to try and get it for 160, even then sometimes knowing and sometimes probably not knowing. There's probably like ignorance is bliss, and they just say, oh yeah, I'll give you 150, and they get it under contract at 150 with the seller. But then there are probably times when they full well know that there is no possible way they're going to be able to sell it. They wait to the last minute and then come in and say, oh, sorry, I can give you 110 now.
Yes, it happens.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, I think that's our campaign, right? I mean, that's the reason we want to work with wholesalers, and we have the commitment to working with wholesalers, is to try and improve the industry, because that's just not right. There's no way, there's no set of circumstances that makes that okay. And I know that you're passionate about trying to improve the industry.
Yes, absolutely. I think just doing the right thing in general is important. But I think that also, if they can't perform, then the next person who comes along is going to have a tougher uphill climb with negotiating, because now they have that number in their head. Oh, I can get 150. This other guy offered me 150, but it was just a piece of paper.
Yeah. These off-market transactions, Sadie, are so common in our field, and yet some people may just not, they may think, well, how's that, like, why would someone ever just not put their home on the MLS? Can you explain to people at home that don't understand, like, some of the conditions you walk into that would prohibit someone from, I mean, there's probably multiple reasons, but one of the ones I would think of is just that the home's not ready to be put on the MLS. Can you talk a little bit about why people sell off market?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's all kinds of situations. We see a lot of older folks in our, when we're meeting with sellers, which, side note, I absolutely adore working with that age group. They have so much wisdom to impart on us, and I think if we listen, we can really be blessed by that.
Love that.
But in aging community, it can be difficult for them to make repairs, whether it be just from a physical standpoint, like they cannot physically do it, or perhaps they're on a fixed income and they're only receiving Social Security, and they can't afford to make the repairs, and the house is in such disrepair because they've neglected it for a number of years, that a traditional sale just doesn't make sense. Or perhaps it's full of stuff that they've collected for 30, 40 years, that they don't know. It's just they're underneath all of this, and it's hard to sort out what the next step is. So we can easily walk in and solve that problem.
And then COVID kind of had a whole nother layer of complexity. One of the things that impressed me with you all the way, because you've been with us the last couple of years, and all the way through COVID, you were finding ways to make people feel comfortable in their home while we were coming into their home. And that was the first thing. Second thing was, I know there were a couple of times when you bought based on just pictures or video, really adapting to this COVID landscape of people that didn't want other people traipsing through their home.
Yeah, absolutely. There is so much fear around that.
Business had to go on though, right? You still got to buy the houses.
Yeah.
Cool. I've been taking copious notes. I'm going to kind of share this. I've got some like main reasons for wholesalers. If this hits on some wholesalers out there that are wondering, how to work with SBD, how would they contact you? What's the best way for them to reach out and provide deals to us?
They can call the office. I can provide, we'll provide like a email address. They can happy to have them send that there. I love to just sit down with people, learn about what their goals are, and see how we can help them start getting some, real tangible results from those goals. And I am happy to, mentor or just help kind of coach or whatever I can do. I'm always happy to talk with people who are coming into the industry or people who've been in it for a long time and just need to kind of build out a handful of buyers that they can always trust.
Love that. Your points today, I have, reasons to work with SBD would be the surety of close. By the way, catch me here because I'm probably not saying them all. Obviously, a big cash buyer. Short time frame, meaning we can close in a super short time frame if they're pushed up against it. No haggle pricing. It sounds like you don't. Your price is your price. You mentioned you never daisy chain or sell to another buyer, and we never retrade down on our price. Right. Once we come in and we get it set, we're not going to come back and hammer the wholesaler down.
Right.
Did I miss anything? I probably did.
We're well funded.
Well done.
And we also are open to, joint venture opportunities. I know we've been talking a lot and have been very excited about the new development that you've been doing. And so if someone has a opportunity on some land that maybe they don't understand how to analyze it or aren't sure how to monetize that, bring it to us. We can help.
Thank you for pointing that out. One of my mantras that I kind of learned to live by is collaboration over competition, and especially within the Kansas City marketplace, right? I mean, we are going to get nowhere just by beating each other up, but we're happy to work. And I think, having you on today is really a testament to the fact that we are literally broadcasting, hey, we love wholesalers. We want to work with wholesalers. We will treat them extremely fairly. We have someone of Sadie's acumen and intellect that is ready and willing and able to sit down and talk with them about how to grow their business and also how to work together. So I'm excited. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to let you collect your thoughts for a minute. I'm going to ask you a few personal questions on the back end so people can get to know you.
Okay.
But in the meantime, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you like our content, please subscribe so you don't miss a video. And remember to hit the notification bell if you want to get notifications of those coming along the way. Mistake-Free Real Estate is dedicated to trying to get the idea out there that there are no such thing as mistake-free real estate deals, and we're here to educate you to provide as minimal headaches along the way as possible. Sadie, I'm a golfer, you know that, and I love to get out there. I find it as a way to just kind of enjoy, a nice spring day. So picture yourself on a golf course, and you're allowed to invite 3 other people in your foursome, living or dead. Who would join you just to walk around and spend 4 hours on the golf course together? Who would be your dream foursome?
Living or not living?
Correct.
Okay. So I would definitely bring my son along because he's definitely like my partner in crime and in life, and he enjoys the same things I enjoy, and we would probably bring my dad, who is also living, and my dad is a incredible inspiration to me, and he's been through some really incredible life events and has managed to be just the most stand-up guy and honest and just cares about people. And I've tried to model myself after that. So love having him around, and we always have a good time and laugh. And I don't know, I think Jesus would be pretty cool to have along as well.
Well, it's no surprise that faith and family are right at the fore of your thoughts there. There's a lot of different responses I get when I ask that question, but that's no surprise because you put those two things first in front of everything you do, and we respect that and love having you as part of the team. One final question. It's affectionately called the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. We know that there's no such thing as doing things mistake-free. Give me an instance when you made a mistake, something that you learned from, like something in the past where you're like, oh, wow, I wish I hadn't have gone through that. But now that I did, I've learned that lesson.
Yeah.
Whether it be real estate or personal, whatever you choose.
Well, and just in general, tenacity, never giving up. I think when you bet on yourself, and then when you don't stick with it, you're not gonna go far. So just sticking with it, and just driving forward. And drive is no problem for me. I think at a different stage in life, I was just complacent, but I learned about real estate, and it's just been like nonstop ever since. So just sticking with something and seeing it through, and allowing the mistakes and learning from those. I can think of one particular house that we purchased last year, and there were so many things that I missed. High dollar flip. I got oversold by the seller, who was actually a real estate agent. And, just like the little stuff that you don't really think about. And one of the things that pops out to me is like the spindles on the staircase. You got to change those out. Doorknobs, like all of those little things, light fixtures, that stuff adds up. And when you're going fast, you don't stop to think about, okay, how much is this actually going to be? And so another, lesson for me is just kind of slowing down, especially when we're talking about, over $500,000 house. And I think everything turned out well with that house by the grace of God. But we learned some lessons. I definitely learned some lessons.
You are a maverick by nature.
Yep.
Right? You know that about yourself. We here at SBD believe in the predictive index, which gives us kind of a PI rating, and Sadie is extreme a maverick. Like it's like A and D, complete opposite ends of the spectrum. But that makes you amazing at chasing deals. You say drive is not a problem. Literally, like you cannot be any further on the spectrum as far as the drive and will to succeed. So love having you on the team. I think that's part of the great thing about you, Sadie, is that you have the ability. You don't see it as winning and losing. It's winning or learning, and you learn and grow from that. So thank you for the commitment to the org. Thanks for your time on the podcast today. It's been fun.
Thanks, Mark.
Until next time, thanks so much.
You're listening to Mistake-Free Real Estate Radio, the authority in passive real estate investing. No late-night calls, no clogged drains, no tenant nightmares. Take the passive investor's approach to real estate investing and trust a turnkey professional. Learn more at mistakefreerealestate.com. Until next time, remember, you don't get rich from what you earn, you get rich from what you own.